Morning, Kumla Blackimoda. Today's daf is of Tzaddik. We're talking about how you can have Hegdish and Gid Hanosha, that Gid Hanosha part to be Hegdish as well. And we said that either the Mishnah is talking about a Pchoir, so therefore it doesn't become Hegdish until after it's born. And Gid Hanosha either happens at the same time, because if you hold the opinion, there's no Gid Hanosha inside the womb. And if you hold the Gid Hanosha inside the womb, then definitely there's Gid Hanosha. And the other case we said was maybe the Tana of the Mishnah holds that a Hegdish doesn't happen until the baby cap emerges. And then we had a machlekes with Rabbi Chia by Rabbi Yechanan, whether Rabbi Chia said there's no Isser of Gid Hanosha by a korban, and Rabbi Yechanan says by a korban oila because it's not something that you eat, and Rabbi Yechanan makes no difference what kind of korban it is. And now we're up to the Gemara. Nachman by Yitzchak is explaining what's so before we said Papa said there's no argument. They're talking about different aspects of it, whether you're allowed to eat again Nasha, then you get Malchus, or whether you should be brought on the Mizbeach or not, whether it could be brought on the corner. And that's somebody else. He said, you could bring it on Mizbeach. Come to Nachman by Yitzchak, he says, actually there's an argument, and the argument is lahaloisei. One opinion said you're not allowed to put it on the mizbech because it's considered the mizbech is eating and gidanosh is forbidden, as we'll see in the Gemara, the Rabbanon. And the other opinion says no, you could bring it on mizbech and so on. and the other one said you could bring it on mizbech as it was part of the animal. You can bring it back. If we have a special limud in the pasuk, you can bring it on mizbech. The Gemara will explain. So machlek is Rebbe and the Chachami. Now we're going to explain what that machlek is. The time the Braisa, it says in the pasuk. It says v'hikti hakoyin is hakoil hamizbech. Talks about the korban oil, and it says that the koyin should bring everything onto the mizbech. What's everything? Lerabes to include atzomas bones by gidin and the kosher gidin, kosher nerves and veins. Vakanayim, the horns, the tzlofim, and the hooves. I would have thought afilu parshu that even if it's separated from the animal, you can bring it up on the mizbech as well. No, certainly you're talking about it was part of the animal. You don't have to cut it off. You can just bring it on this back.
Perish. Isn't pure shoy? Is that what it means? Or does it mean partial, like you said?
I think it means it was separated. Yeah. It should be separated. And that you bring on the mizbeach only the basar and only the dam. No, so eat basar v'dam, then yochel maybe yachos gidim atzamas. Maybe you should then remove all the gidim and all the bones and everything else, and the yala, and put it on with daf tzaddik in the middle of the page, it's actually the bottom half. The yala basar, the only thing you put on mizbeach is the actual flesh. Tamalema, so you have a ribu. The hikter hakoin is hakoil mizbecha. So you have one pasuk that says include everything. You have one pasuk that says only the flesh and the blood. So we decided to include the bones and the veins while they're attached, and not while they're detached. Okay, it said michel borim yalu. If they're attached, you bring it up, and parsha, if it's separated, afilu berizbech. Even if it's on top of the mizbech, you brought mizbech, and then on top of the mizbech it got separated. They should be taken off. Yeah. So now the Gemara will explain what the basis for this is. It's actually an argument, and we're going to say that's the argument of Rabbi Yechanan and Rabbi Chia Yosef. Uman Tana the Shammers laid on a Parsha Yoda. Who's the one who said Parsha Yoda? Who's the one who said that if it's separated from the animal, you got to take it down? It's Rebbe. The Tanya we learned the hikter hakoyin is hakoil. The koyin should bring everything up. Let rabbis to include atzomas, the bones, the gidim, and the veins, the kanayim, the horns, the tlofim. But afilu Parsha. Even if it's separated, you should put them on the bed. There's an opinion here that even if it's separated, you can leave them on the mizbeach. If all the parts of the animal are brought to mizbeach, so what I do with the pasuk where it says adam, that's talking about paikin. That if it got burnt on the mizbeach and then it popped off, so if it's the meat and the blood, you put it back on, and if it's these other things, you leave it off. Okay, so equally if it's burnt from the meat, you put it back on. You don't put the leftovers of the gidim and atzamas. That's the view of the chachamim. So according to chachamim, even if it's separated from the animal, you put it on the mizbeach. However, Rebbe says, Kosuv Echad, and we'll soon see what that do with Gidanosha. What would the Rabbanon hold regarding Gidanosha? Rebbe says, Kosuv Echad, maybe have this contradiction. One part says, Hiti Lakai is Hakoil, Riba, includes everything. Because of me, it comes to exclude. Okay, so how do you reconcile the two? So Michu Borim, while it's attached to the animal, the bones and the Gidin is Yalu. Put them on Mizbech, like we said before. However, if it's separated, then I feel the Berojah, even got separated on top of the Mizbech. is Yed. No, the Rabbanon, they want to learn from here that that they say that even if it's separated, you put it on Mizbeach. So but you have a pasuk that says only bas of Adam. Then Rabbanon says mechuborin la'itra kroled buye. Rabbanon say I don't need a pasuk to tell me. You Rebbe are saying the pasuk that says on the bottom of Tzadik Amar Aleph. So we're saying over here is a machlekes by an oil if you put the gid hanosh of the chanat. So we're getting the machlekes Rebbe Chachamim. According to Chachamim, one pasuk is a ribi, one pasuk is me. Chachamim says coming to be becoming the marble that it's attached to the animal, you put it on the mizbech. In fact, even if it's separated from the animal, you put it on the mizbech. It's only once it got burnt and it popped off, then you only put the boss of a dam on the mizbech and not the other parts. And they say the pasuk, you're telling me the pasuk, the ribi is coming to tell you include if it's attached to the animal, even though it's only bones and veins, leave them on the mizbech, bring them to the mizbech. So I'm saying you don't need a posse for that. If it's part of the animal, like the head, for example, it's better to put the head on. The head is mainly made up of bones, and yet you put it on the mizbech. So obviously you don't need a special posse for that. So you don't need a posse. So if the posse comes to your marble, something must be that even though it's separated from the animal, so it's not like the head, it's separated from the animal, leave it on the mizbech. The only time that and the meat come to tell you that if you already got partially burnt on the mizbech and then it pops off, you don't put it back on. If it's separated. So the pasuk we need for separated that you still put it on the mizbech, and the exclusion is if we got burnt, then it fell off the mizbech. The Rebbe, and according to the Rebbe says, what do I need the pasuk for? Rebbe says I need the pasuk to tell you that if it's attached to the animal, you put it on the mizbech. Why need a pasuk for that? Because Rebbe holds if it's separated from the animal, you don't bring it to the mizbech. That's the meat. And the Rebbe is tell you, if it's mechubar, you put it on the mizbech. Right, the Reish is put on the mizbech. Why need a pasuk for mechubarin? But Rebbe mechubarin the head teda laser. You're right. Of course, you don't need a pasuk for that. It's like the head. That's what. So Rebbe is the one who holds that a gid hanosha of an oila goes on the mizbech, and it goes on the mizbech, and that you need a pasuk because you're not allowed to eat it. So it goes on the mizbech. And the Rabbanan, good point. How can the Rabbanan use the pasuk to tell you that even if it's separated from the animal, you put it on the mizbech? Maybe you need to tell you that if it's attached, but it's something which is usher to eat, not the gidin that somebody's talking about before, but something like gidin usher, also put it on the mizbech. Why? How come the Rabbanan don't need a pasuk for that? So the Gemara, you know why you don't need a pasuk? Because they hold you not allowed to put the gidin usher on the mizbech. Why not? But Rabbanan mimashke yisol and amutil yisol that it has to be something which I eat is allowed to eat. Put that on the mizbech. Since gidin usher you cannot eat, you can. Therefore, they say that of course you cannot put it on the mizbech. You have to cut out, excise the gid hanosha. So Rebbe holds that the gid hanosha can go on the mizbech. We have a special pasuk for it. You have the ribi. According to Chachamim, that ribi is to tell you that even if it's separated from the animal, and gid hanosha you're not allowed to put it on the mizbech. You have to cut it out. Why do you have to cut it out? Because mimashke yisro, we learn from the pasuk that you should bring to the mizbech. It said min hatzayim min haboker. It said in the pasuk in Tanakh mimashke yisro, only that which is edible. Anything which is treif, you don't put on the mizbech.
You don't put like chelos and stuff on it.
Only what the Torah says. Torah says, it doesn't matter. The Torah gives a special, it's often a pasuk. But Rebbe, in his argument, exactly over here. Rebbe is going to argue like this. I agree with you that Mashke Yisrael means Min Hamut Yisrael. But here is different. And the Gemara Pesachim says only when we say Mutter Yisrael means only if the Isa is not Isa Davar Achagor Maloi, not if it's a Isa Gabra, it has to be an Isa and a Chefza. Then you're not allowed to put it on the Be'ech. So Chayigida not Isa Chefza. But since exactly what you just said, the Chayla goes on the Be'ech Adam, so it shows that. Yeah, so therefore, not like Chacham say that's Exeris Akosa. He says that comes to tell you that by when it comes to Korban, an exception, these kind of Isurim that are part of the animal itself are not Asa. But Abban Mitzvah, Abban say no, that's different. The Torah made a special. There's a kosher that chelim and dam you put on, but not for gid hanosha. So the Gemara, Amar, I'm going to say, and I will continue this. Machlek is gid hanosha shaloyla. The gid hanosha of an oila chulza oila tapuch. You cut it out and you put it in the big pile. There's a big pile in the middle of the mizbech, looks like an apple, it was round, and then you put all the junk and you pile it up there as well. Says the Gemara, Amar Rav Chiz said, Mori Dirchi. This is basically Mordechai. The master of this saying. Miksiv doesn't say what's wrong. He's saying it's interesting. I'm going to argue the same thing we just argued in the Tanaim. Whether you put the gid hanosha on the mizbech, Rav Huna says no. You don't put gid on the mizbech. You got to put it in the junk pile. And the Rav Chida says What do you mean? Why can't you put on the Miksi? Does it say Al Kain Lo Yachol Mizbech? It says Al Kain Lo Yachol Mizbech. It's an Isra on the Eden. Where does it say that the Gidan Nosha cannot go on the Mizbech? So he argues and he says the Gidan Nosha could go on the Mizbech. But Rav Huna says, "Memashki Yisrael, yes. What's also to a Yid is also to the Mizbech." Meisha, I'll ask you a question. So the same machlekes.
It's interesting because why would a Moira go over?
Unless it was the Brisa, and then maybe they didn't have the Brisa. Meisha, I'll ask you a question. Gidan Nosha Shlamim. It says the Gidan Nosha V'Karm Shlamim. By Karm Shlamim, you eat the thigh. So, obviously, since you eat the thigh, you have to extract the Gidan Nosha. And what do you do with that? Is Mechabde La'ama. There's a little creek that goes through the Beis Hamikdash, and you toss it in there, and you don't have to burn it. It's not like noisa that you have to burn because it's not really food. You just throw it in there. Vishal oila, because noisa is only by food. Anything which is edible, you didn't eat it, you have to throw it away. But the kiddush obviously not allowed to eat it. Interesting. Rashi asked a question. If we're talking about the thigh of the shlamim, where can you eat the thigh of the shlamim? The whole Yerushalayim. So why do you have to dafka inside the Beis Hamikdash cut out the Gid HaNosha? So Rashi therefore says maybe we're not talking about here the shlamim at all. Maybe we're talking about the Chatas Nosha. But then Rashi says an interesting thing. Rashi says he said he heard from his rabbis, but he says to me it seems. First he said I want to change the gissa, but he said maybe the kohenim used to get the chazay and the sheikh. The kohenim are the ones that get the sheikh where the Gid HaNosha is. Most of the meals of the kohenim while they were in service, when they were receiving the chazay and sheikh from the shlamim, was inside the Beis Hamikdash. They spent all the time in the Beis Hamikdash. So therefore, practically speaking, halachically could have been anywhere, but practically speaking, that's where they ate all their meals. Because they used to sleep there. Therefore, it says shlamim. And shel oila says oila. What you do is maleu. You bring the whole thing up, the thigh with the Gid HaNosha, and you what do you call it? And where do you remove by an oila? Where do you remove? Where do you remove the Gid HaNosha by an oila? On top of the mizbech. Why? If you take it down below the mizbech, then you have a bloodied, cut up thigh. It's mias to bring it up to the mizbech, which is all cut up. So you bring the entire thigh up on the mizbech, and once you're on top, that's when you cut out the Gid HaNosha. My love, ma'aleyu makir. It says that you bring him mizbech. You do bring the Gid HaNosha mizbech, exactly like Rav Huna said. Exactly like Rav Chizda said. Because I can't let Yechel ben Yisrael to Gid HaNosha mizbech is allowed to. Because it says in ma'aleyu. So you might know la ma'aleyu cholzei means that you bring. Like I just told you, you bring him mizbech according to Rav Huna, and you actually cut out the Gid HaNosha. So why do you cut it out on top of mizbech? Why bring it up? So now it says this is how you deliver it to your officer. In other words, it has to be bakavadik. It has to be done in a very honorable way, a dignified way. So therefore, you bring the entire thigh on the mizbech, and then you cut out the what do you call it? You cut out the Gid HaNosha. Says the Gemara, Tanya, we learned the Brayse Kabbalah Rav Huna. We actually learned the Brayse like Rav Huna. That was that the Gid HaNosha of the oila you cannot eat, and you pile it up. The Gid HaNosha shlamim. It says here Gid HaNosha shlamim mechabdel amma. You throw it away. V'shal oila chil tzoyle tapuach. There's clearly here that the oila. What do you do with the Gid HaNosha? You don't just put it on the mizbech. You cut it out and you put it in the pile. Zarayah to Rav Huna that you don't. The Gid HaNosha of the oila also to be put on the mizbech as part of the garden. Because I mean, Mamashki Yisrael. We learned over there, Tapuach Ebem, talking about Tapuach. Tapuach Ebem, it's Tapuach, piled up nose, sometimes they pile up so high, Kisholish Meyes Kur. That the pile was so high, it was the size of 300 Kur. A Kur is 30 so. It's massive.
It's interesting. Why wait till now to tell us that there was?
We just told you he just introduced the way you do the Gid HaNosha. We'll learn later in terminology places. But he's saying here, that the Gemara Amarava Guzma. No way in the world, in the middle of his bayach, he had a pile of 300. It's just trying to emphasize the point that it was very, very big.
Shloshmeis is a stand Guzma, isn't it?
Shishim, Shloshmeis, a few numbers. Places Babasa says that is Lashon Guzma. So now the Gemara mentioned Guzma.
So this so-called apple, didn't get burned?
No. They used to then throw it away. As soon as it got too big, they would throw it away.
But in the Mizbeach, you had the fire going. How did it not get burned?
No, but the Mizbeach was pretty big. It was 30 amas, so they or 26 amas. So they had 3 fires there, corners.
Yep.
This is right in the middle, piled up. And obviously, whenever it got too big, there was no rules. When they saw it was too big, they would remove it away. And this thing I was saying, it's an exaggeration. So now that you mention exaggerations, we'll tell you that it's a common thing to exaggerate. Amar Rav says, Amar Rav Ami, Dibra Torah Lashon Havoy, the Torah exaggerates sometimes, unbelievable. Dibra Nevi'im Lashon Havoy, sometimes the Tanakh you find exaggerations, and Dibra Chacham Lashon Havoy is the Chacham as well. Dibra Chacham Lashon Havoy, Hadami just said right now, 300 card, no way in the world. The Dibra Torah Lashon Havoy, where do you find the Torah sort of an exaggeration? Rashi very kindly says that Havoi doesn't mean what we think exaggeration. Havoi, says Rashi, is the way people normally talk. They're not so particular to get accurate information. Not what when we say exaggeration, you put a 10 hairs to it. Here you just say, not that trying to lie, but just weren't careful. Not that deliberately there was 10 and it said it was 1,000 there. So maybe the word Havoi is not as bad as the word Guzma. And Guzma may be stronger than Havoi. Says the Gemara, but where do you find the Torah? Moshe Rabbeinu says, "Odim gedolos b'shamayim." There were large cities and fortresses b'shamayim in heaven. Are there cities in the heaven? Of course not. I'm not sure exactly what I mean. Rashi says Alma Loidok. Loidok is it was 10. I say it's 11, okay. 12. Loidok is the houses are here on the earth, and I'm telling you they're in the sky. It's not really a Loidok. It's more like an exaggeration. It's trying to emphasize how big they were. Anyway, we find in the Lashon Havoy, but that the whole world, it split up and it made a lot of noise. And there was so much noise there, it's as if the earth split. But it didn't actually happen. 3 places the Chachamim use a language of exaggeration. Tapuach, we just said, Geffen, we'll still see in a minute. And Upareiches. Tapuach, the case of, actually I skipped a line. I skipped before, sorry. Right after the Gemara before, I skipped. Right after Amar Rabba, let's go back for a minute. Amar Rabba said Guzma. So the Gemara, right after that says that Hishkus Atamim Kashazov, they used to give the animal to drink so that's easier to strip. By Fabringen, you say if you has l'chaim and mashkin, and then once you say l'chaim, that's when you can go start stripping their hide and get them, make sure they daven properly and they learn properly. But if you give the animal to drink, so it'll be easier to strip the hide, and they gave in golden cups. So Rabbi says it was only a guzma. They didn't give golden cups. So Rav Chizda says there are only 3 places that the Chachamim spoke in exaggeration, which means that when it says that Rashi explains according to Rav Chizda, he actually argues. He held they did use, it wasn't a copper cup that looked golden. It was a real golden cup they used to use to give to drink. And why? Ein aniyas b'mokam ashiris. Very interesting when you use the rule of ein aniyas b'mokam ashiris, so when you use the rule of hatoyrach chasal amayim sheyisra. Anyway. Tapuach, the case we just said, Tapuach, Geffen, the case of the Geffen, we'll see in a minute. It looked like a big vine that you hung up in front of the base of Mikdash, and people used to bring in the golden things that they used to donate, leaves and all that, golden leaves, and they used to hang it up there, pin it up there. And the Pareiches. According to Rashi, the Pareiches here was the Pareiches, the second base of Mikdash that separated the Kodesh Kodashim and the Kodesh. There was no wall, so they had 2 Pareiches, one. It was an amma between the 2. The one is on the side of the Kodesh Kodashim, one is the side of the Heichel. So now, what's exaggeration? There's a golden vine there hanging on the entrance of the Heichel. Stretched out over the curtain. If anybody used to donate anybody used to donate a piece of gold, they used to make it in the shape of a leaf or a vine, grapes. Maybe the Torah should go and pin it up there. And so, and Omar Abelaza, but I'm sorry, they once needed 300, the 300 number again. They once needed 300 koinim to clear it out. That's an exaggeration. There's 2 different machines they were swinging it. Every single thread was made up of intertwined with 24 threads. Its length was 40 amas, and the width 20 amas. From 820,000 threads, Nas was made. And they used to make 2 curtains a year. It's made two curtains here, either because the traders used to make some smoke and used to, had to change it, and or a rip. V'shalosh meyas koinim ad bin. It took 300 koinim to table the mikveh. That's the exaggeration. Or the exaggeration was there was 820,000 strings. But 820,000, at least Rashi's first version said exaggeration, 100 koinim. 820,000 sounds like a very specific number. An exaggeration would be 1,000,000 strings or 800,000 strings. 820 sounds more, that's an accurate number, and the exaggeration is 300 koinim. And yeah, we learned. Rabbi Yehuda says, Rabbi Yehuda says only one leg is there. Which means it makes more sense. It's the right one. Why does it make more sense? The right one. The Gemara will say later. The whole story of the Gidanosha was that Yaakov embraced that the Malach took his hand and put it around Yaakov. Now, my right hand is your left side, and when I put my hand all around you, I end up at your right foot, and that's he dislodged this of what it called of Yaakov. So the pasha that's why it's usher. So it should be the right side of that. That's the logic. And the question is he saying this for a fact, or is he saying he thinks that it's the right foot, not 100%? It's a suffix. He boiled a is certain my das Torah, and when he said makes sense means that's what the Torah means. He's not sure. My das das my logic tells me. Toshma coming there. It says that by Korban Pesach, when you have any leftovers, you don't burn them for the Yom Tov in the morning. You know, burn Kochim and Yom Tov, right? Maybe you'll base a Sreifa. So what you do is you wait till Chalamoid. So the bones, the Gidim, and the Noiser, you burn on the 60th day. But what Gidim are we talking about here? This is edible Gidim, then you should have eaten it. And Vida Yait and is left over, falls under the banner of Noiser. Talking about the Gidim around the neck, which are very tough and hard to eat. Well, again, the same thing. You love busting, and if they're hard and tough and can't eat it, then throw it away. It's not that there's no Noiser here, because it's not food. And so why do you have to burn it? And according to Rabbi Yehuda, what do you mean? Since it's a suffix, now that's the eye we're going to bring a suffix. If it's a suffix, we don't know if it's gidanosha or not, but could be it's meat, could be it's not gidanosha. We don't know if it's the right leg, the left leg, we don't know which one it is. So therefore, they couldn't eat it, but maybe it's meat. So therefore, they would burn it. It would always be nicer. So according to it makes sense. If you say it's a suffix, it makes sense. You couldn't eat it, but maybe it's meat, so you have to burn it. For sure, only the right leg and not the left leg. Then if it's from the left leg, eat it, and the from the right leg, you throw it away. Surely he knows exactly the right foot. Who knew which one it is, so therefore they could have eaten it, for example.
No, it got mixed up.
Or if the right foot they could have thrown away. That got mixed up. What do you do? But now, so the suffix is not because they didn't know the chatchilu, because now it got mixed up with the other gid. Now we don't know which. This is the gid or not the gid. Now, you don't have to say that. El lishmanoi, the fats around the gid hanosha, we decided to ask as well with the rabbanon, and therefore. So really, he knew exactly which gid anosha. We're talking about the shumra of the gid. The mahataydi you're allowed to eat it, so therefore it's nicer if you don't eat it. But with the rabbanon we couldn't eat it, so you had no breda. So you had to wait until Yom Chalamoid and burn it then. The time we learned shmane mutter, the fast mutter, Yisrael kedoshim. The Eden was so frum, noga by Isra. They decided to asa that fats as well. It's our Indian made us yog. This follow you know Rabbi Mishmol Shnei Gidin Hein. There are two Gidin. So there's two Gidins. One long one that goes from the end of the spine all the way down to your toe. That's called the Pnimi, and that's the Gid Hanosha. And then there's another one that's called Gid HaChitzon. Big machlek in the poskim and hagim, whether it's the Gid that comes out. There's another Gid that comes out of the spine. Towards the skin of the animal. Oh, they have a picture right there. Or it's at the bottom part coming out from the Gid Hanosha itself. And that's the machlek is a different minhagim, and that's why, the Vesel should know that you have to be all this kind of stuff. And yeah, today in America, we definitely don't do any of this nikur and all that, because all those little I don't know what's called again. All the little veins that are coming out of it are also part of the Isser. And that's very, very hard to pull them all out.
The inner one is the Gid HaChitzon.
That's what, yeah. Pnimi is the one next to the bone. and is also chayav and olav. Chitza so the basar also from the rabbanon when chayav not chayiv, and that's what we're talking about here again. The same thing. It's the chitzon. We can't eat it because we're machmir, but matayit it's edible. Therefore, it's nice. You burn it. We had this before. As we go through quickly. From both legs. Seifik when you get 80 because the chacham is 2 averis. If you don't get 40. Because only one of them is asa. Doesn't make sense. For sure he knows which one that is. Shabbat makes sense. Not a straw suffix. Eliyam is because I'm not sure which one's the Easter. No, each time you warn him, don't eat. Have that straw suffix. You don't know if he's about to do the Easter. Maybe it's the wrong leg. And we know that Yehuda holds a straw suffix l'shmasra. The time we learned, a kid was born 8 months after the divorce of the first father, and she got remarried. Now we don't know if she's pregnant. She's supposed to wait 90 days before she remarries, but she marries straight away. So now we don't know something the first, the second, and this kid did something to his father, which you're not allowed to do. But we don't know if it's his father or not. So if he hit his one father, then he hit the other father. He cursed. He cursed. He together. Because one of them is his father. The Yehuda says depends. Why? Because each time that's a suffix. So Gemara says no die. High Tana, no die from here because maybe this Tana holds ki either Tana be the other Tana, and if it holds Asra, maybe we don't know what Abiyuda holds. Where do you find that? The time we learned, only till the morning. Because they give you an assay that if you have anything left over, burn it. You don't get malchus. That's why it's a lava nitik assay. Rabbi Yaakov says, the reason we shouldn't have a lav sheba ma'aseh. Not every time is nice it's only a suffix. You know for sure he'll leave it behind. You tell him the night before, make sure you leave nothing behind. Maybe he won't. Every time, because I saw to be within Teichel Dibur. It's always a suffix. So there's a raya. So there's 2 opinions what Rabbi Yehuda holds. No raya one way or another. We'll continue tomorrow in Mitzvah Shem.